Heat poured from the sky, bouncing off glass and metal. Hawkers shouted through traffic, weaving between honking cars. Bikes buzzed like flies. Tired faces stared out from Danfo windows. And the dust, always the dust, hung in the air like a quiet witness to everything. It was just another afternoon, loud and bright, where time moved fast and mercy moved slow. No one saw him fall. Or maybe they did, and simply decided to look away. The old man lay half-slumped at the edge of the expressway, white tunic stained with blood and dirt, one shoe missing, walking stick split in two. A reckless taxi had hit him minutes ago and kept going. He had rolled to the curb like discarded trash. His mouth opened, but no sound came. A few feet away, people gathered like clouds, whispering and watching. But no one moved. Until the red jacket. Adana's delivery bike screeched to a stop at the edge of the scene. Her phone buzzed on the dashboard, 12:40 and 3 seconds p.m. She had exactly 17 minutes left to make a fragile, prepaid delivery. 17 minutes. She glanced at the old man again. His chest rose, slowly. His lips moved. Her hands tightened around the handlebars. People were already murmuring. Don't touch him, oh. You touch him and he die? Police go say now you kill him. Last week one boy try help. He still day cell. Adana's jaw clenched. She looked at the box strapped to her bike. Her lifeline. Her job. Her last warning. The man groaned softly. And then, another voice came. Not from the crowd, not from the street, but from somewhere deeper. Her mother's voice, soft and clear as it had been years ago. Even if the world turns its back on you, never turn your back on someone you can help. Her throat burned. Her fingers trembled. She had only seconds. And so she chose. She dropped the helmet, rushed to the old man, and knelt by his side. Sir, please stay with me, she whispered. Taxis flew by, uninterested. People stared like she was mad. She didn't care. Somehow, she lifted him. Not with strength, but with will. She dragged him to her bike, hoisted him across the seat, and climbed on behind. No time to balance properly. She drove. Into traffic. Into heat. Into a city that didn't stop for anyone. 12 hours earlier, Adana was up before the sun. 5 a.m. The cramped one-room apartment in Lugby was already buzzing. Kerosene stove sputtering. Water drums filling. A single fan rotating lazily over 3 sleeping bodies. She had already ironed uniforms, packed lunch, and was now braiding her sister's hair while standing. Mara, still half asleep, mumbled, Sis, you need to sleep more. Adana smiled faintly. I'll sleep when you both become doctors. It wasn't a joke. It was a contract. Their lives had broken open a year ago. A night no one would ever speak of properly. Armed men, a robbery, blood, and silence. Her parents gone. Just like that. There were no answers. No suspects. No justice. Just grief and bills. Adana was 17 when she became a mother. No relative stepped in. No family offered help. She sold what was left. Gave up school. Took the only job she could get. Courier. Writer. Ghost in traffic. She had to beg for it. Lie about her age. Most dispatchers were men, hardened by the city. She learned fast. How to drive. How to avoid police. How to survive rain and customers and threats. Her red Swiftsend jacket became her armor. Her smile, her disguise. Every day. Breakfast. School drop-off. Helmet on. Engine start. Vanish into the day. This morning had started no different. She got the job order at 8:13 a.m. Fragile. Prepaid. Urgent. Jobita was. Delivery window. 25 minutes. Kunle, her manager, had said it plainly. Late one more time? Don't bother coming back. And so she had left the office flying. Until a broken man lay bleeding in the middle of her schedule. The hospital lights were too white. Too bright. She stumbled through the doors, dragging the old man across her back. The nurse on duty screamed, Get a wheelchair. Now. Taxi hit him, Adana managed to say. He's not responding. Doctors flooded in like a wave. They took him from her, rolled him away. And suddenly, she was just standing there, shaking, sweaty, alone. Are you his relative? A nurse asked. No. You have his phone? She fished into his pocket. Blood, fabric, pain. One number, my son. She called. One ring. Two. Yes, Dad. Adana's voice cracked. This isn't your dad. He's been in an accident. He's at Zenith Medical. Zone 6. Silence. Then panic. What? I'm coming. 30 minutes later, the glass doors swung open again. A man in flowing white agbada and dark glasses burst into the lobby. Tall, clean, angry. Where is he? My father. Adana stepped forward. You're his son? He nodded. I brought him here. He blinked. You? On that bike? Yes. He stared at her for a long second, then rushed inside. She went back for the box. Gone. Just gone. Her chest collapsed inwards. Phone buzzed. Hello, she said. Kunle's voice was sharp. Wait. What do you mean the box is gone? She opened her mouth. But the call had already ended. Back at the hospital, the man was waiting. He saw her. Called her over. They stood near the coffee machine in a quiet corner. He's stable, he said. Doctors say. A few minutes later, and he might not have made it. She nodded, barely breathing. You lost your delivery, didn't you? Yes. And your job? She nodded again, swallowing tears. He studied her. Swift send, right? How did you? I own it. Her eyes widened. You own it. He pulled out his phone. Called Kunle. This is Andrew. You fired a girl named Adana Yugochukwu today. Reverse it. Replace the box. Assign someone else. Immediately. He hung up. She stood frozen. You didn't have to. I did, he said softly. You saved my father. They sat in silence. Then he asked, Who are you, Adana? And so, she told him. About the robbery. The silence. The grief. The sisters. The job. The choice. The fight. Andrew listened. Not like a boss. Like a human being who hadn't heard a story like this before. When she finished, he said one thing. You're not going home alone tonight. She blinked. Sir, I'll drive you. I want to meet your sisters. That evening, a black Bentley rolled into Lugby. Children paused their games. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Adana felt her stomach twist. She led him through the narrow compound, past cracked walls and peeling paint, into the one room that held their lives. Mimi leapt into her arms. Mommy. Mara stopped at the door, blinking at the man in white. Who's he? Adana smiled. This is Mr. Andrew. He helped me today. He knelt to their level. Nice to meet you. I've heard you're very smart. They giggled, unsure. Inside, he didn't sit. He just looked around. Quietly. You girls are lucky, he said. Your sister is extraordinary. Adana blushed. Looked away. Then Andrew turned to her again. What's your plan now? She shrugged. Return the bike. Maybe find another job. He studied her. Crossed his arms. Made a decision. I want to help you. And just like that, everything began to change. She didn't believe him at first. When Andrew said she wouldn't be returning to her delivery job or the rundown apartment in Lugby, Adana simply nodded, like someone listening to a story they couldn't afford to believe. But he wasn't speaking in metaphors. You're not going back to Kunle's branch, he said that night, seated on the only wooden chair in her home, legs awkwardly folded under the low-ceiling fan. You'll be transferred to the head office. Not as a writer. Her brows drew together. Then, what would I do? You'll find out. It should have scared her. This man who spoke with certainty and quiet authority, offering a new life like it was a phone upgrade. But something about his calm made her breathe easier. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't selling hope. He just meant it. More than that, he offered something Adana hadn't heard in a long time, a plan. Not pity. Not charity. A future. The next morning, the twins could barely keep still. We're going to live in a mansion. Mimi squealed, arms flailing as she packed her favorite t-shirts into a black nylon bag. Is there going to be jollof rice every day? Mara asked, wide-eyed. Adana wasn't sure. She wasn't even sure this was real. But the black Bentley that pulled up in front of the compound at 9 a.m. was impossible to ignore. It didn't honk. It didn't need to. Its presence alone made the dusty air pause. Neighbors peered from behind curtains. One woman whispered something to another. Children pressed against walls, pointing. Andrew stepped out, as composed as ever, in a navy blue kaftan and quiet leather shoes. He opened the back door himself and waved to the girls. The silence that followed was the kind that only poverty understands. That long, tight moment when the impossible pulls up to your front gate. Adana swallowed hard. She looked around their small room one last time. The bunk bed, the calendar with her delivery schedule, the plastic buckets and faded photo of her parents. Then she grabbed the girls' hands, and they stepped into the unknown. The mansion looked like something from another country. White stone gates, marble floors that clicked under your shoes, chandeliers that twinkled even in daylight. Adana had seen places like this in films, behind velvet ropes, across wide fences. But now she was walking through one, with a backpack and two little girls. At first, everything felt too big, too quiet. The kitchen had more cabinets than she'd ever seen in her life. The windows were taller than the door in their old flat. There was a chef, a real one, with a white coat and hat and everything. Mimi and Mara adapted in exactly 4 minutes. They ran into the hallway, laughing, discovered a game room, found a staircase that echoed when you yelled from the top. They shrieked and giggled and declared themselves princesses of the palace. Adana, on the other hand, didn't know what to do with her hands. She kept asking the maids if they needed help. She washed her own dishes, folded her clothes, refused to sleep in the room they gave her until someone explained how to turn off the blinking light on the AC remote. But slowly, things softened, especially when Johnson, Andrew's father, came home. "Adana, come and sit with me," he said one morning from the living room couch. His voice was rough, but kind. His eyes sparkled with the same sharpness that must have once commanded boardrooms. But now, they focused on her with surprising warmth. "I heard you're the one who carried me on a bike. Brave girl." He started calling her my nurse without uniform. Every morning, they walked slowly around the garden together. Johnson cracked dry jokes, told stories from the war. Sometimes he got tired and needed help walking back, but he never complained. "She's not just kind," he told Andrew one afternoon. "She's born for something great." Andrew didn't reply. He was watching Adana from across the room. Quiet, unreadable, but something shifted in his expression. Not gratitude. Something deeper. Like someone recognizing a truth they hadn't dared to imagine. Weeks passed. Adana was re-enrolled in school. The same secondary school she had dropped out of the year before. It was awkward at first. Most students were younger. Some whispered when she walked into class. Some snickered. One girl called her Andy Ryder under her breath. Adana ignored it all. She sat in front, asked questions, stayed back after class to study. Every evening, she came home to the mansion, helped Mimi and Mara with homework, and sat in the garden until her eyes stung from exhaustion. And it worked. 3 months later, when exam results came out, she had the highest score in the entire school. Andrew called her into his office. He placed the result sheet on his desk and smiled. "You're going to university," he said, "and I know exactly what you should study." She blinked. "What?" "Data analytics." "Why?" "Because triple cargo is expanding internationally, and I want someone I trust, someone like you, helping me run it." Adana stared at him, lips parted slightly. "You believe in me that much?" Andrew looked up, slowly, his expression softer than she'd ever seen. "I always have." And in that moment, she saw it. Not just admiration, not just kindness, but something that scared her more than all the poverty, all the pain, all the loss she had faced. Hope. The garden was glowing that evening. Soft lights woven through tree branches. Jasmine in the air. The twins laughing in the background, chasing each other with palm fronds. Adana stood barefoot in the grass, the earth cool beneath her feet. She turned. Andrew was standing on the balcony, hands in his pockets, watching. Not the garden, not the girls. Her. They sat by the garden table, silence between them like silk. Andrew spoke first. "You know, I never used to sit out here. Always felt too empty." Adana looked around. "It's peaceful now. That's because of you." She glanced away. "I've just been trying to help." "No. You brought life back into this place. Into me. Into my father." She didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. Then he added, quietly, "When I first built this mansion, I thought money would make it feel like home." He paused. "But money doesn't build homes. People do." Adana nodded slowly. "My mother used to say that." She said, "Love makes a place worth living in." Andrew smiled, gently. "Your mother must have been wise." "She was." Another pause. Then he leaned in. "I want to sponsor you fully. Through university. And when you graduate, I want you to work at Triple Cargo, not as a favor, but because you've earned it." She looked at him, stunned. "But, why me?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he just said, "Because you saved my father. And you saved something in me too." From the hallway, Johnson's voice rang out. "Adana, come and help me turn off this thing. I pressed the wrong button again." She stood, laughing. As she walked away, Andrew watched her disappear into the light of the house. And he realized, He wasn't just grateful anymore. He was falling. Hard. The days that followed were golden. Mimi and Mara started school again. This time, a prestigious boarding school with uniforms that sparkled like polished dreams and teachers who didn't yell. Adana still felt strange watching them walk through marble gates each morning. But the girls were thriving, smiling wider, sleeping deeper. Johnson was stronger than ever. He insisted on walking farther in the garden each day, cracking jokes about retirement, sometimes teaching Mimi how to play chess while scolding Andrew for overworking. And Adana? She had entered her first year at university. Data analytics, just like Andrew said. But as much as things were blossoming on the outside, something had shifted on the inside. The air felt different, not broken, just full of weight. It began with a whisper. Have you heard? A courier boy said near the triple cargo gate one morning. That girl, the dispatch one, the CEO's favorite. She's living in his house now. Which girl? The one that carried his father on her back. They say it was staged. Staged? A beg. People do worse for money these days. Adana didn't hear the gossip directly, but she felt it. The change in tone, the sideways glances, the pauses when she entered a room. She shook it off at first. Her life was too busy for pettiness. But the whispers grew, and one morning, Andrew received an anonymous letter at his office desk. Your golden girl isn't what she seems. Ask her why she was even at the accident scene. Check again. There's more to the story than you know. No name, no return address, just enough poison to make someone hesitate. Andrew read it once, twice, then slowly folded it and placed it in his drawer. He didn't speak to Adana about it. Not right away. Instead, he picked up his phone and made a call. I need footage from Zone 6 traffic cams. Last month, around noon. Accident near Expressway. Find me everything. Adana returned from school one Saturday, soaked from head to toe. It had rained hard. One of those Abuja rains that felt like a warning from the sky. She entered the foyer, dripping water, laughing to herself. Then she stopped. Andrew's voice floated from his study. I don't care what it costs. Check if she had any connections to the scene. I want full clarity. If she lied, I need to know. Her heart stopped mid-beat. Was he talking about her? She stepped back quietly, water dripping onto the marble floor. Her breath caught. Her throat tightened. For the first time since she'd met Andrew, she felt a crack in the safety. A sliver of doubt, slicing through the silence. That evening, as the household gathered for dinner, a maid entered the dining room. Sir, she said softly, there's a woman at the gate. She says she knows Miss Adana. Adana frowned. Who? The maid handed her a folded piece of paper. The handwriting was shaky, almost childlike. I know what happened to your parents. Come outside alone. Don't tell him. Her fingers trembled. She stood up slowly. Excuse me, she murmured. Nobody stopped her. The night was unusually still. The gate light flickered. A woman stood just outside the compound. Scarf wrapped tight. Face tired, aged, but alert. You knew my parents? Adana whispered. I was your neighbor, the woman replied. Madam Stella, I live 2 houses away. Adana stared at her, heart thudding. I've been carrying this guilt for 2 years, the woman said. But when I saw you on the news, I knew I had to find you. Why now? Adana asked, voice barely holding. I was scared, Stella said. But you didn't even know the man on the road. Yet you stopped. You risked everything. A beat of silence passed. Then the bomb dropped. The robbery that killed your parents wasn't random. Adana's knees buckled slightly. What? It was planned, Stella whispered. Your father, he refused to sell his company's land. A businessman wanted it. Threatened him. 2 weeks later, the break-in. Adana couldn't breathe. I saw a black car that night, Stella continued. Driver on the phone. Watching the house. I knew something was wrong. It didn't look like a robbery. It looked like punishment. Adana's hands covered her mouth. Stella reached into her bag and pulled out a crumpled slip of paper. The plate number. I wrote it down. I kept it, just in case. Adana took it slowly, staring at the numbers through blurry eyes. Everything she thought she had accepted, every truth she buried just to survive, was now on fire again. The next morning, Adana walked into Andrew's study. He was sipping coffee, reading emails. She dropped the note on his desk. I need your help, she said. Andrew looked up. What's this? A plate number. I need to know who owns the car. It was outside my house the night my parents were killed. His expression shifted. Eyes darkened. Where did you get this? I met someone last night. A witness. Andrew stood, moved closer. You should have told me earlier. I overheard your call, she said, voice raw. You were investigating me. I had to protect my father. And the company. And you, he said. I didn't want to believe anything, but I had to be sure. They looked at each other for a long time. Then Andrew nodded. I'll find out who owns that car. 48 hours later, the answer arrived. Andrew's investigator stood in the office doorway, face grim. The car belongs to a shell company registered under one name. Dr. Kelvin Odegwu. Adana's heart dropped. The name wasn't unfamiliar. He's a powerful businessman, the investigator said. Connections everywhere. Politicians. Land agencies. Rumors of corruption. Andrew added quietly. Your father worked with him once. Years ago. Rumor was. He refused to help Kelvin cover up a land fraud. Adana felt something inside her collapse. Then harden. It had never been random. Her parents hadn't died because of bad luck. They'd been executed. Silenced. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed, watching the stars through the giant window. Then came a knock. Soft. Andrew stepped inside. You okay? He asked. She nodded, but didn't smile. He sat beside her. I'm going to help you fight this, he said. But we have to be careful. He's connected. I want justice, she whispered. Not revenge. I need the truth to matter. Andrew reached for her hand, held it gently. You have my word. In the darkness, her hand stayed in his. And for the first time since the story began, they didn't feel like two people from different worlds. They felt like two survivors, holding on to each other. Because some truths don't break you. They build you. The courtroom was colder than Adana expected. Maybe it was the AC, maybe it was the stairs. Maybe it was the weight of truth finally rising out of the ground where it had been buried for 2 long, painful years. Dr. Kelvin Odegwu stood at the witness box in a crisp gray suit, polished, calm, and utterly untouched by guilt. His eyes scanned the room like it bored him, like he had already bought the ending. But Adana was done watching the powerful win by default. Andrew sat beside her, fingers folded, jaw tight. Johnson was behind them, cane in hand, eyes narrowed in focus. Mimi and Mara weren't there. This wasn't a place for children. This was a battleground. And the truth was finally ready to fight. It took 5 months. 5 exhausting, bureaucratic, infuriating months. At first, nothing moved. No judge wanted the case. Kelvin's lawyers filed delays. Some of the police officers investigating were quietly reassigned. A few even tried to suggest that maybe the break-in was random after all. But Andrew had money. And Adana had fire. Between the two, things began to shift. Surveillance data, call records, financial transactions. The investigator Andrew hired found it all, piece by painful piece, including the call logs between Kelvin and a known gang leader on the night of the murder, including proof that Kelvin's car was parked across from Adana's home for exactly 39 minutes. 39 minutes of silence before gunfire. And then they had a name. The gang leader, deceased. Shot by police in a separate robbery a year after the attack. But the link was enough. The judge had no choice but to listen. Adana testified with a strength she didn't know she had. She spoke slowly, clearly, not as a victim, but as a daughter whose voice had been taken and was now being returned. My parents were good people, she said, hands steady. They built a company from nothing. They were generous, fair, and honest. And that cost them their lives. Kelvin's lawyer objected. The judge waved him off. I don't want revenge, Adana continued. I want truth. I want the people who kill to believe they can't hide forever, even if they're rich, even if they have friends in high places. Her voice cracked once, just once. Then she straightened her back and kept going. The verdict came like thunder. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, officials, curious faces. The judge read the sentence calmly, but no one in the room missed its weight. Dr. Kelvin Odegwu, found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, and illegal use of state influence. Sentenced to death by hanging. The room was silent. Adana didn't cry. She just exhaled, slowly, like she had been holding her breath for 2 years, and someone had finally allowed her to breathe. Johnson leaned forward, placed a hand on her shoulder. Your father would be proud, he said. 2 weeks later, Adana returned to the cemetery for the first time in over a year. She stood between 2 graves, each marked by small stone slabs. each holding memories too large for marble. She didn't bring flowers. She brought news. They didn't win, she whispered. I found out who did it. And they're gone now. You can rest. Behind her, the wind rustled the trees. Somehow, the air felt lighter. The house was different now. Not bigger. Not cleaner. Just warmer. Johnson spent his days walking laps around the property, chatting with staff, occasionally offering unsolicited advice about stock investments or which football team had the best midfield. Mimi and Mara returned from school with tales of new friends, cafeteria drama, and test scores that made Adana proud. They were still loud, still impossible to tell apart at a glance. Still hers. As for Adana, she was no longer just a student. She was now a junior analyst at Triple Cargo, shadowing Andrew directly. He didn't treat her like a trainee. He treated her like a partner. Someone whose instincts he trusted. Someone who saw things others didn't. Their conversations, once filled with instructions and questions, now drifted into softer spaces. What scares you the most? She asked one evening during a strategy meeting that had wandered off course. Losing what I've just started to find, he answered. He didn't look at her when he said it, but she felt it. The garden behind the mansion had become her sanctuary. She still stood barefoot in the grass some nights, watching the sky, listening to the giggles of her sisters echo between the hedges. It was on one of those nights, quiet, breezy, stars above like scattered diamonds, that everything shifted again. She was reading in the library, lost in a textbook, hair tied up, hoodie slightly oversized, feet curled beneath her. Andrew entered without a word. He stood behind her for a while, not wanting to interrupt. Then he cleared his throat. She turned, startled. Andrew. He walked forward slowly, then knelt beside her chair. From the moment you carried my father on your back, he began, voice low, I knew you were someone rare. But watching you these past months, watching how you care, how you fight, how you love, I realized something. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opened it. A diamond ring sparkled in the library light. I realized, I don't just admire you. I love you, Adana, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. She gasped. There was no need for thought. She already knew. Yes, she whispered, tears spilling. Yes, Andrew. Yes. The wedding wasn't just an event. It was a statement. White roses lined the garden aisle. Gold canopies swayed under soft music. Guests arrived in tailored lace and starched agbatas, senators, business leaders, celebrities, even dispatch riders from Swift Scent. Johnson walked Adana halfway down the aisle. At the halfway point, he paused. I never thought I'd get to say this, he said, voice trembling. But I'm proud to be the one giving you away. She hugged him tightly. Andrew stood waiting under a floral arch, eyes locked on hers. Adana wore a dress of simple lace, her hair wrapped in traditional geli and veil. She looked like royalty, but more than that, she looked whole. They said their vows. They kissed. They became one. A year later, their daughter arrived. Inozi, named after Adana's mother. The woman who taught her how to love and when to choose kindness, even when it hurt. Andrew was there for every moment, every checkup, every scare, every sleepless night. And when he held his daughter for the first time, something in him changed forever. She has your strength, he whispered. Adana smiled. No, she said softly. She has ours. And just when it felt like the story was complete, Adana found herself on stage, in front of a crowd of young Nigerians at a youth empowerment conference in Lagos. Behind her, a screen read, "One act of kindness can change everything." She adjusted the microphone. My name is Adana Ugo Chukwu Okafor. A few years ago, I was a delivery girl on the streets of Abuja, young, orphaned, struggling, and forgotten. But one day, I saw an old man lying on the road. Everyone passed by. I stopped. She paused. That man was the father of a billionaire. I didn't know. I didn't care. I just knew I couldn't leave him there. She glanced at the front row. Mimi and Mara were there, now medical students, smiling through tears. And beside them, Andrew, holding baby and Nosy in his arms. Kindness changed my life, Adana continued. Not because I expected anything in return, but because kindness has a way of circling back. She took a breath. I am proof. My story is proof. And I believe yours can be, too. The crowd rose to their feet in thunderous applause. But Adana didn't need the noise. Her peace was already here. The conference was over, but the story was far from finished. That night, Back in Abuja, Adana stood alone in the nursery. The soft blue night light cast a warm glow across the crib where little Inozi slept, fists curled like petals, chest rising in calm rhythm. A lullaby played faintly in the background, something her mother used to hum. Adana leaned on the edge of the crib, watching her daughter, and for the first time in years, her mind wasn't racing ahead. It was here, still, quiet. The chaos was behind her now. She had survived. No, she had lived. The next morning, a new routine began. Mimi and Mara left for school in crisp white coats. It was clinical rotation week. Their dream of becoming doctors had survived it all. Poverty, grief, change, and now, they walked through hospital doors wearing stethoscopes around their necks. "I hope we don't faint during surgery," Mara said, laughing. "I hope you don't," Mimi corrected. "I'll be fine." Adana watched them go with a full heart. Andrew wrapped an arm around her shoulders as they stood by the gate. "Your mom would be proud," he said. Adana nodded. "They're going to change the world. So are you." She smiled faintly. At Triple Cargo headquarters, Adana's office overlooked the city. She had risen fast, from analyst to regional logistics strategist. But she never let the title change who she was. She still greeted the cleaning staff by name. She still packed lunch for the interns on Fridays. And when she visited Swiftson's Jobby branch, she brought muffins. Kunle was no longer there. Andrew had quietly reassigned him to a different company, one far away, where his voice couldn't reach the young dispatchers who needed more than orders. Adana became their silent legend. They whispered about her in hallways, called her Madam Ryder. Some even asked if the story was true, that she once carried a man on her back through Abuja traffic. She never confirmed it. She didn't need to. But even in peace, the past occasionally knocked. One day a letter arrived. No return address. Just her name. Inside, a short, handwritten note. "You don't know me, but I was one of the officers who turned away from your case. I wanted to say I'm sorry. And thank you for not giving up. Because of you, I've started again. I've joined a youth program that teaches ethical investigation. You changed more than just your life." Adana folded the letter carefully, slid it into her desk drawer, and sat back in her chair. She didn't cry, but her chest ached, in that good, quiet way where something broken starts healing properly. That weekend, the family gathered in the garden again. The same garden where it all began. The air smelled of grilled suya and jasmine. Johnson sat under an umbrella, holding a nosy on his lap, teaching her the difference between a knight and a bishop on a small wooden chessboard. Mimi and Mara were in the hammock, debating whether to specialize in pediatrics or surgery. The chef played old Afrobeats on a speaker, and the staff laughed easily with Adana like they'd known her forever. Andrew walked over, 2 glasses of Zobo in hand. "Here," he said, handing her one. They stood together for a moment, watching the family move around them. "Safe. Federal hole. It's beautiful," she said. He glanced sideways. "You made it that way." She shook her head gently. "No, we did." That night, after the dishes were cleared and the twins had gone to bed, Adana stepped out onto the balcony. The city sparkled below. Crickets chirped softly in the garden. Andrew joined her, wrapping a shawl over her shoulders. "I've been thinking," he said. "Oh boy," she teased. "What now?" He smiled. "I want to expand Triple Cargo further, build an academy, train young writers, teach them logistics, tech, business." She turned to him. "You mean like a school? A place where no one's story ends because of where they start," he said. She paused. "What would you call it?" He looked at her. "The Adana Initiative." She blinked. Laughed. "Absolutely not." "Oh, it's already in motion," he said smugly. "There's even a logo." She nudged him playfully, then sighed, leaning into his shoulder. "Fine, but only if we let girls ride bikes." He kissed her temple. "That's the whole point." Years later, a new story began. A reporter interviewed Adana for a documentary on resilience and impact. The camera rolled. "What would you say," the reporter asked, "to the girl you used to be, the one riding through traffic with a broken helmet and a delivery box?" Adana smiled. "I'd tell her, don't change." The reporter looked surprised. "Really?" "Yes," she said. "Because even when she had nothing, she still stopped to help. That girl didn't save a man's life that day. She saved her own." A pause. Then Adana leaned in, eyes steady. "And if you're watching this, wondering if you should help someone when it's inconvenient, scary, or risky, do it anyway. That moment might change your life. She looked into the lens like she was looking through time. I'm not special. I was just brave for 5 seconds. And sometimes, that's all it takes. And somewhere in Abuja, another girl in a red jacket pulled her bike to a stop. A man was lying by the road. People passed. She hesitated. Then she remembered the story of a girl named Adana. And she chose. Just 5 seconds of courage. Just enough to change everything.